Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. The time is 2, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to make a motion to officially call the meeting to order.
We are called to order.
Thank you. To start off, first of all, today I'd like to acknowledge our great loss to our 911 family. As you all lost Vicki Pickett recently, who has been in 911 for over 25 years, served as a Colorado 911 Resource Board member as well. So I ask that we observe a moment of silence in her honor. Thank you for that. She is greatly missed. Reminder to everyone to please sign in. The sign-in link is in the chat. And Jennifer, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and begin roll call.
All right. Good morning. Representing CCI, we have Scott James, Tina Powell, Julie Nelson, or Allison Unison.
Do you hear me?
Now I can.
Oh, sorry, Tina's here.
Thank you. Representing CML, Jeremy Shepbach. Okay, representing Accessibility, Cheryl Garcia. Good morning, Cheryl. Representing At Large, we have Chad Weber. Your proxy for him, Cheryl? Perfect, thank you. Whoops. Okay. Representing BESP, Tim Kunkelman.
Good morning, I'm present.
Good morning. Representing BESP, Sean Ward with Entrado. Representing ILEC, Jeff Winkleman.
Good morning.
Good morning. Representing ILEC, Darla Joseph with NNTC. Okay, representing Wireless, Jenny Santana with T-Mobile.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Representing Wireless, Ryan Hoke or Barry Graham with Viero.
We are here.
Good morning. Representing CLEC and VoIP, Cindy Hartkop or Tina Medivere, Josh Hemingway.
Cindy's here.
Good morning, Cindy.
Morning.
Representing CLEC VoIP, Jay Slater or Erica Stevens.
This is actually Michelle McGuire, proxy for Jay Slater.
Thank you and good morning. Representing 911, Jody Chin with Gunnison.
I'm here, good morning.
Good morning. Representing 911, Danette Martin with Morgan County.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Cindy Castile with Grand Junction.
Here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Kimberly Culp or Val Turner or Tracy Oldmeyer.
Good morning, this is Kimberly and I'm on.
Good morning. Representing 911, Jackie Reynolds with AdCom.
Good morning, this is Jackie, I'm here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Beth Dobransky with Eagle County 911 Authority.
Good morning, this is Beth and I'm here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Valicia Librand, Caitlin Golek, Caitlin Golkley or Paula Nall with Sterling.
This is Caitlin Gockley. I'm here.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Representing 911, Jeff Irvin with Jeffco Broomfield 911.
Jeff Irvin is here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Deanie Shin with Douglas County.
I'm here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Andrew Dameron or Jody.
here.
I think both of us are here.
I think you're both here. Representing 911, Michael Brewer with Jeffcom, or Kevin. Thought I saw Michael on earlier. Okay, representing 911, Tina Bonetta or Scott Newman with Aurora.
Good morning, Scott Newman is here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Kathy Rayleigh with Arapahoe County 911 Authority. Representing 911, Matt Gage or Alex Wall with Metza. Good morning. Representing 911, Carl Stevens or Tom Holman with Garfield County.
Carl is here.
Good morning. Representing 911, Patty West or Christine Mesa with Boulder Regional ETSA.
Yeah, Patty's on.
Good morning. We do have a quorum and you are all set, Jody.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Mary Staples on behalf of Intrado is here.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, welcome any newcomers to the meeting today. Please know that we welcome your input. We want to hear your voice, so do not let being new to the group intimidate you into silence. We definitely want to hear what you have to say. So starting off, did everyone get a chance to review last meeting's minutes? And if so, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes as written.
Jeff Winkleman moves.
Andrew seconds.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed sign? Okay, we'll approve the minutes. All right, the first order of business today on the agenda, we have a presentation from Lumen on the proposed EZNet offerings. However, CenturyLink and Lumen requested that we push that presentation back until noon or so, until Rich Johnson from Intrado is available to join for that. So we'll come back to that item. So that being said, we'll go ahead and move on to the standing reports. And just as a reminder for those standing reports, we're no longer reading those reports in the meeting. So if you have points to highlight or if anyone has questions, please do so when we get to your report. And then just a gentle reminder to submit your reports to Jennifer ahead of time so they can be reviewed. So the first report, the PUC staff update, Jennifer.
All right, good morning. We have a lot going on. We do have the 3 open proceedings. The notice of proposed rulemaking is still open. We held a public comment hearing and we are waiting next steps from the administrative law judge. We have the BES improvement plan application and CenturyLink Lumen filed an updated plan and discussions are ongoing in that proceeding. We also have the open advice letter, tariff amendment, and they CenturyLink filed an amended advice letter. We have a pre-hearing conference set for March 21st, determine the schedule going forward on that. We have a lot going on in state legislation, but I'm going to defer that to the legislative committee for discussion there. And although I would like to call out congratulations to House Bill 241016, which redefines 911 and classifies us into public safety. So congratulations on that passing both the House and the Senate. That is scheduled to be signed by the governor tomorrow. I don't know if the snow is going to affect that or not, but I would like to extend my congratulations to the legislative committee and to all those who testified in support and made that happen, especially Michael Brewer of Jeffcom and South Metro, and Jackie Marie Louise, who shepherded as well. We've got federal legislation going on, moving at a snail's pace. I did correct the surcharge amounts. I had the wrong number in there for the prepaid. I had a number that would have solved all of our funding challenges if it had been true, but it wasn't. So I do have corrected numbers in there for the prepaid wireless charge. Thank you so much. And we are collecting, the one thing I want to call out is that we are collecting our governing body data, which is required. And so if you have not yet submitted your annual governing body data updated information, please do so within the next week or so. That's concurrent with also PSAP data. So you might have gotten two links depending on whether you're the representative for both. So those are the only things I have to call out, but I am open for questions or comments. And I think most of what I have to update on for the PUC staff update is probably going to get discussed later on in the standing reports. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. For the BESP report, do I have Jeff? Or anyone?
We don't have anything today that wasn't covered in our EZNet users group meeting.
Okay. And that includes the Entrado as well, correct?
I can't speak for Entrado.
Anyone from Entrado have an update on the report? Okay. For the bylaws committee, Kimberly?
This is Kimberly. No update, no bylaw changes requested.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. For the legislative committee, Jackie Louise?
Jody, Jackie said she might be late. And so I would recommend maybe coming back to this one when she's able to join.
Okay, that's fine. For the next one, 988, is it the night? Yeah. For the next one, the 988 report, Kelly? Okay. Moving on, for the Equal Access Committee, Holly?
This is Sarah. I'm not sure if Holly's in today. I can give us you guys a little quick update of what the Access Committee is working on. We're currently trying to put together a town hall for mid to late May to meet with members of the community and 911 dispatchers and agencies to help find any discrepancies that the deaf and hard of hearing community might have when contacting emergency services. We're working on putting out 2 separate surveys, one to 911 dispatchers on what their experience has been in taking those types of calls, if they've ever taken those types of calls, and then one out to the community, again, what their experience has been, if they've ever had to contact 911, how has it worked for them, and what kind of issues or things that they've come across. So that's currently what our focus is on right now.
And this is Holly. I was also going to add one of the things that we wanted to let the group know is that we are seeking some type of sponsorships for that event to support with selecting a venue, bringing in accessibility needs, interpreters, closed captioning, things like that. So in the chat right now, I am putting a link to the sponsorship package that we are asking folks to consider. So if you are have some authority in your agency and would like to support with hosting this event, then we would greatly appreciate you reaching out to myself or Sarah and letting us know. And the payments will go directly to pay the expense, obviously, because we don't have any way to collect funds. So if somebody wanted to support with a venue, they could pay the venue directly, perhaps pay with some interpreters, snacks for the event, things like that. So that document is in the chat right now. And that's all I got.
All right, thank you both for that. Moving on to the outage committee, Tina Powell.
I don't have anything outside of what's in there. Daryl, is there anything additional you want to add?
The written report covers it unless people have questions.
Okay. We'll skip over the prepaid and collections committee until Jackie's on and move on to the reports committee. Daryl?
So 3 times per year, the task force sends a report to the commission on the task force's activities. Jennifer did send out a draft of that to the group. There wasn't time, unfortunately, to send it out to the reports committee first for review, so it went straight to the full task force for review. So what I think we would like to do at this time is to ask if anybody has any changes that they would like to see to the report. I don't know, Jennifer, if anybody submitted any comments to what you posted, but otherwise, I think we could ask for a vote to approve the report to the task force. And then I have a couple of questions for the full task force about the reports committee.
This is Jennifer. I did get a few comments and suggestions, which I incorporated.
Does anybody have any other changes or suggestions they would like to make before we ask for a vote to approve the report to the commission?
And I would just add to that that the maps that we have here, I don't know if we got a chance to update those, Daryl. But
Yes.
okay, great. So the maps are current now.
Though not hearing anything, Jody, if you wanted to call for a motion to approve the task force report to the commission, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, all right, making a motion to vote to approve the report to the commission. All in favor, say aye.
Wait, we need a motion first.
Oh.
Jeff
Sorry.
Irvin moves to.
Jeff Winkleman, second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Jody's just trying to be efficient.
Right.
So I'm sorry, it sounded like that passed, right? Did I hear that? Okay.
It's fine.
So we'll get that filed. My questions for the task force about the reports committee is really the reports committee really only has 2 tasks. I think at the time that we formed the reports committee, we thought it would be doing a lot more. The first task is to review these reports, which unfortunately we just ran out of time and weren't able to send it to the reports committee first for review and feedback. So we sent it to the full task force instead. And so it kind of begs the question of whether it's really necessary to have a reports committee to review and provide feedback on these types of reports. And the other thing that we use the reports committee for is the annual State of 911 report. Once we have the first draft of that done, we've been sending it to the reports committee first. We get a little bit of feedback, sometimes not very much at all. And then we send it to the full task force as well as other public safety associations for them to review and provide feedback. So there's still an opportunity for people to provide feedback. So my first question is that I am not sure if we need a reports committee anymore. And in the interest of reducing the number of standing reports and the number of committees that we have just for the sake of having committees, I would ask the task force if there is a need to continue having this. If people think that it has value, I'm fine with keeping it. Otherwise, I would suggest that maybe we retire this committee and just, when we have something, a document that needs to be reviewed, to send it to the full task force instead of the reports committee.
All right, anybody have thoughts on keeping the reports committee or retiring it?
I see Jeff put retire in the chat, which I assume he's referring to the committee and not myself. I have a few years to go yet.
Or him.
And for the recording too, I do want to put in here that Kimberly put in the chat that she that Lita is abstaining from the vote on the report to the committee, or excuse me, the report to the commission, because they hadn't had time to read it, which is fair.
Okay. And I did say it, it was just covered up by some other conversations. So my apologies for not reiterating it. So, so that
Anyone else have any thoughts about whether we should keep the reports committee or retire it? We can always bring it back later too if we decide that we need it.
This is Matt. Retiring it seems reasonable.
Okay. And I don't know that we need a vote on it. I'm just trying to get, I think, Jody, as the chair of the task force, you have the ability to create or dissolve committees at will. So this is just to get you some direction from the membership, and I'm not hearing anybody clamoring to keep it.
Okay, well, just to be official, I'll go ahead. Do I have anyone that can make a motion to vote, and we'll just vote on it?
I move that we ask people that object to retiring it, tell us.
Okay. Anybody opposed to retiring the report committee? Okay. Hearing nothing, we'll go ahead and make a motion to retire it.
The second question I have is on this particular report. So there is no requirement that the task force provide regular reports to the commission. This is something that I proposed several years ago to the task force, because the task force does exist to provide advice to the commission on 911, and having some sort of regular communication from the task force to the commission seemed like a good idea. And we settled on 3 times per year because that comes out to once every other meeting. I wanted to ask if people think that cadence is still good. Do we want to reduce it to once a year? Do we want to increase it to 1 report per meeting? I think it's entirely up to this task force, but because we just kind of picked 3 times per year very arbitrarily, I wanted to see how that was working for people. There's really not a lot of change between most reports. In this report, we did have a couple of changes to the maps. And I do send these. I file them in the repository proceeding for the task force after they're approved by the task force. But I also send them directly to each of the 3 commissioners, and they never ask me any questions about it or have any comments. So I don't know how much benefit they're getting out of it. But I'll take feedback from the task force as to what they would like to see happen with these reports going forward.
I think Kimberly was first.
Kimberly?
This is Kimberly. So years prior, we did an annual presentation report to the commission, and it was a written and then also just verbal highlights. And we looked at work that was accomplished for the year, and then goals, objectives, work we're tackling, pitfalls for the upcoming year. And I just remember it being interactive and engaging, and it wasn't just Lynn at the time that would do the presentation, or even Gary Klug. It was more of like the chair of the task force, PUC staff folded in pieces there, but it was more of a group effort. And I just remember it being received really well. So my vote would be that we go to an annual presentation to the commission.
Jeff?
What she said.
Okay. Anyone else want to chime in and maybe support that approach or offer any alternatives? And then I guess if we go that route, I think the question would then be, when do we want to do that?
Daryl, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Jeff did have his hand up for comment after Kimberly.
Oh, Jeff, did you have something else? Or were you done?
That was it. I didn't pull it back.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So I guess the question then would be when we want to do that. The State of 911 report is due to the legislature September 15th of every year. It might make sense to kind of fold a task force report into that. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on what the best timing for that would be.
how's it fit with your workload, Daryl?
Well, I think, Kimberly's point that the annual report before and presentation was put together mostly by the chair and other members of the task force, I think is a good one because, the commission staff is meant to administer the task force. We're not meant to run it, and we're not even voting members. So I think, it may not be so much a matter of commission staff's workload as what would work better for the people who would actually be putting the presentation together. Carl?
Yeah, just because it is a commission task force, it might be nice to be able to present that to the commission before it is given to the legislature, even if it's around the same time.
Kimberly?
This is Kimberly. Daryl, what is the cadence of turnover for your commissioners? Because it also could be something as a quick baseline introduction for any new commissioners to just level set and then talk about accomplishments and objectives going forward. So if there's a particular cadence of when you get new commissioners turnover, we could time it around that.
Staggered so that one is either reappointed or replaced every year, unless there's a retirement or a resignation. And that happens in January when the legislature comes into session. So if we wanted to do it after a potentially new commissioner has been appointed, doing it in January, late January or February might make sense.
So this is Kimberly, just to follow up. I think something like that, even if it is more in that April timeframe to give them a couple of months, but we would probably want to hit it early in case there's issues that are in front of them. So it won't be the first time that they are hearing about the 911 task force as a new commissioner. So my recommendation would be on that first quarter approach then.
Joe?
Way back BC, before COVID, we used to also have the task force meeting at the commission. I don't know if we always did it, but for several years we had the meeting at the commission that corresponded with that presentation. And that may affect timing, although I think we could still do Zoom no matter where we're meeting. So that wouldn't prevent us from meeting there.
Yeah,
in March or
frankly, most of the commission's meetings are virtual now too. They have one in-person CWM a month, and all of the other meetings are virtual. So, I think we're probably better off sticking with that for now. So I think based on Kimberly's suggestion, we might look at doing an annual report and presentation in the spring, which will give us, when I say us, I really mean you guys, the task force, more time to develop what you want to say to the commissioners. And we can start trying to work on putting that on the calendar. So does anybody object to that approach? Okay, I'll take that as my marching orders. And if anybody else has any other thoughts about it, let me know. And that's all I have, Jody.
All right, Daryl, thank you. Moving on to EZUNet users. Is Kathy here?
Jody, it's Danette. Kathy's out. We had our meeting yesterday. Jennifer, I apologize for not getting the report to you before this meeting. Just a couple highlights on the ECATS implementation. As of last Friday, we're about 41% complete. They're missing forms from several PSAPs with no response on those. So they will be reaching out to people. So be on the lookout for that. And if you have any questions, contact Tracy Dillo. She's more than happy to set up a one-on-one phone call or whatever you need to have her do so that we can get the EZUNet implementation complete. Since the strategic plan failed, there has been a workshop set up, and that's Tuesday, March 26th from 1 to 2:30. And so we encourage everyone to join us for that. And if you want to be on the email list, get with Jennifer and she'll add you to that so that you're on the calendar invites. And lastly, we had a proposal from Vexel, which is a imagery company, sort of like the same type as Pictometry. They are offering free to 911 PSAPs the ability to look at the state maps that they're providing for the state of Colorado to help us with our workload in the 911 centers. And Jennifer, you probably have more if you'd like to add any more to that.
Sorry, this is Jennifer. I had to get off mute. So Vexel is offering to provide the imagery that they did under contract with the state of Colorado free of charge to PSAPs who are interested in participating. So I will add, or I'm sorry, I have added their presentation to the EZNet Users Group meeting materials from yesterday, which is open to EZNet Users Group members. So for more information, their contact information is at the end of that presentation, and you can reach out after going through that presentation, the slide deck, and reach out to Mark at Vexel for more information about how to get that material.
All right, and I think that's all I had, Jody. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you both. For the GIS committee, Matt?
Thank you. Nothing to add.
All right. For the Colorado Public Safety Broadband update, Kristen?
Kristen was not available today, so I'm filling in for this. Is Michael Murphy. Don't think we have anything to update at this time.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
SCS report, Deanie?
Morning. The only thing I had to add was just a reminder of the PSCS radio summit that's coming up May 1st and 2nd in Parker, Colorado. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Deanie. The SWIC update, Amanda?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you. The Division of Fire Prevention and Control report. Connie, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add.
All right. And anything on the 911 Resource Center update, Connie?
No, Jennifer updated the signing that's going to happen tomorrow on 10/16. And again, thanks for everybody for their support on that.
Thank you, Connie. For the Rapid SOS update, Karen? And I didn't catch to see if she was on earlier in roll call.
I don't think she's here.
The CCOA update, Kimberly?
This is Kimberly. I don't have any additional updates outside of the written report, but happy to answer questions if anybody has one question.
Okay. All right, thank you, Kimberly. All right, thank you to all the committees for working on all of these items. Do we have any additional comments? Oh, wait, let me go back. Let's see, Jackie, is Jackie on yet?
I did make it on. I apologize for not being here on time.
That's okay.
I'm half blind now, but you know, hey.
Back up to the legislative committee. Jackie Louise, do you have any updates?
Yes, the committee hearing that was scheduled for today is now a snow day, so they will move it to next week on Senate Bill 139. I believe in my report I put in our proposed amendments, and I have not heard back from the drafter. And the other bill is a House bill, and I'm sorry I can't see it. But that House bill, I want everybody to take a look at because the committee needs to see if there's amendments we need to get to the sponsor.
This is Jennifer. Jackie, are you talking about the 24-1359?
Yes, the one with the emergency notification.
So could you just fill in the task force a little bit on what that bill is, and who's putting it forward so that we can have a conversation if we need to?
I believe in my report, I put a link to it. And sorry, I'm just trying to see this. There we go, perfect. It's about hazardous chemicals, and I know some of you have read it because I've gotten some emails on it. But it's actually got some language around emergency notification services and WIA. And so we just need to take a hard look at it. And like I said, I'll have that on our committee meeting, our next committee meeting, which is Monday at 2:00.
This is Kimberly. I can give a quick overview if you would like, Jackie.
That would
I'm
be awesome.
sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. I am so sorry. I'm half blind and
Actually, I apologize. Carl was appropriate and raised his hand, so I will let him go first and raise my hand.
Thank you, Carl.
Kimberly, go ahead and because my comments are more against it, just because of the use of the emergency notification system.
This is Kimberly. Carl, lead is going to take a position of amend instead of opposition, mainly just because there is so much support on getting this through. So we are working on amendments right now, and that is exactly right on the bill. What it's doing is it's taking the decision point away from the incident commander on what area to notify and even really the message to be said. And instead, the bill is requiring within 24 hours, an entire county emergency alert is sent out with specific language. So even if you're not impacted or in the immediate impact area of a hazmat situation, the bill's requiring an entire county alert. So bad bill, bad language, we don't like it, but we're working on a strike through of various different components of that to put that decision point back to the incident commander. So as Jackie pointed out, for your cities and counties or whomever is your emergency alert authority, I highly recommend you take a look at this and get involved because it's going to be heard next Thursday.
This is Carl. I think that would be a good amendment because my concern is because we do end up paying how much we use the system, and if we're sending it countywide, it could run through our credits quite fast. Cost us money. We don't have a cost recovery in there, and I think it's a misuse of the system. One of my concerns is if something happens on the very west end of the Garfield County, we're alerting people, in Carbondale, which is quite a distance away, but we're not alerting people in Grand Junction or Loma or someplace like that. I think it's an improper use of the system unless the emergency manager, which they currently would tell us to send out an alert. It also gives people 24 hours, basically the well sites or well operators 24 hours to report it, and that's kind of past an emergency situation for most incidents. I think PIOs would be a better avenue just for general information like that.
Thank you both. That was a great summation. And yes, I have it on the agenda for Monday at 2. Please join the committee. Let's see if we could get some good amendments put together. It sounds like Kimberly's going to have some ready. And I'm happy for the legislative committee to reach out to the sponsor or so that we can, one of the sponsors is the same representative that did the ENS study. So I wanted to reach out to her and give her a heads up that, we would like to see some amendments to this bill.
Joe, you have your hand up?
Yeah, from my quick review of the bill, it seemed like it would even require ENS alerts where it didn't rise to the level of an emergency incident, where it was a small discharge that didn't reach the areas where there were members of the public. So it seems like it even goes beyond emergency situations where they'd be requiring notifications just to let people know that discharges are happening. And that certainly doesn't seem appropriate for use of emergency notification systems and could lead to notification fatigue and people just disregarding them.
Carl?
Yeah, and I reached out to our local oil and gas agency, our representative at the county level, but I'm unable to get an answer whether these things occur that would, require this alert if they occur, once a year, once 5 years, once a week, once a month, and that's kind of scary to try to budget for something like that. It's going to cost us money, but I think Kimberly's right, and it needs to be the emergency manager that decides the notification sent out, or the, incident commander.
All right, do we have any additional comments on that one? Okay.
Thank you, Jody. This is Jackie. I just want to wrap up just a little bit. I wanted to thank everybody for all their participation on the bills that we've been working on. Congratulate on 1016. We're very excited. I hope some people can be down at the Capitol. I will not be available tomorrow. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody for their participation and say that, when we all work together, it seems to really, really help us all. So again, Monday at 2, let's take up this House bill so that we can get the amendments to the Senate, to the representative. And thank you all.
All right, Jackie, thank you. Do you have any updates on the prepaid and collections committee?
No updates on the prepaid collection committee. Thank you.
All right, I believe that covers all of the reports. Thank you to each of the committees for working on all of those items. At this time, do we have any additional comments about any items discussed?
This is Jennifer. It looks like Cheryl has her hand up.
Cheryl?
Oh, in the chat.
Oh, okay. She added, I want to add the study on House Bill 23-1237 on multi-language alerts was complete, and there's a link in there if you want to take a look at that. Thank you, Cheryl. I believe that is the conclusion of the standing reports then. Okay. Moving on to the next item, old business. So regarding the 911 task force representative opening, this opening is a voting member spot. I did receive a couple of nominations for those interested in the vacancy, but only one was eligible as the others were from already represented authorities. So the single eligible nomination is Ronnie Magruder from Rio Blanco County Sheriff's Department. And that being said, I have Ronnie on the list. Is there anyone present today who would like to nominate someone or self-nominate from the floor for this position as well? Okay. Hearing none, no additional nominees, I'll entertain a motion to call for a vote for Ronnie for this position.
Carl Stevens, so moved.
Jeff Winkleman, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Hearing none, okay, congratulations, Ronnie, for taking that spot. All right, regarding the NG 911 strategic plan draft, Kathy?
This is Jennifer. So Kathy wasn't on. I know Danette is here, but I think she covered this item under the standing reports. And I'll just reiterate, anybody who is on the EZNet users group that wants to be part of that workshop session on March 26th or future workshop sessions, just send me an email and I'll make sure you get the calendar invite.
Thank you, Jennifer. Eventually I'll remember who's all on and who's not.
It's all good.
The 10-digit wireless call delivery, Kimberly, do you have an update on that?
This is Kimberly. So interesting conversation with AT&T and also with the FCC. So AT&T told us on the call that a lot of their delivery on 10-digit is decided by the PSAP as their default route. They also stated on the call that we could change that and send it to our backup PSAPs if we wanted to. So they sent us over a list of all of the decision points as it relates to if you can't reach 911, what is that default route? And they were all 10-digit numbers. So when I asked to send calls to our backup PSAP, of course, it would be across the star code and the EZNet. They said, no, they can't do that. It is only delivery on 10-digit. So a little bit of, I'm going to call it miscommunication with them. From a capacity perspective, it is what it is. That is what they have for your particular area. I don't know if they ever did respond to you, Jody, with a statewide glance at that. But again, we found a capacity restriction specifically with AT&T, and we did not experience that with other carriers, so which was great. AT&T did mention they are working on updating their infrastructure. I asked if Colorado could be in the front end of the line, and that would be around June, which would give us additional, it would change the way that they're entering into the 911 network and could give us additional capacity. So not real progress, just maybe a little bit more information on that issue, but no resolution.
Okay, I appreciate that. And let me know if you need me to send out that communication or continue to nudge them to try to get a response. So I can certainly do that.
Thank you, Jody.
All right, thanks, Kimberly. And Jennifer, on the in-person meeting locations for this year.
Thank you. This is Jennifer. I just wanted to let everybody know, one, thank you for volunteering to host. And we do have our summer in-person locations set. Glad we didn't try to do one today since half the state is under feet of snow. But the May meeting will be in AdCom 911, and the July meeting will be up in Routt County in Steamboat, and the September meeting will be in Eagle County. So I will update those calendar invites with addresses and information so that we have them for options for attending in person and having in-person networking opportunities. Thank you to AdCom Routt County and Eagle County for hosting. And I think we're all set. Hopefully we won't be under feet of snow in May when we go down to Adams County.
Hoping I'm putting it out there. All right, does anyone have any comments or questions about old business? Otherwise. All right, hearing none. Moving on to new business. Daryl, on the Resource Center board member update.
So the Resource Center sadly has a vacancy because of the passing of Vicki Pickett. This was one of the 4 positions on the 5-position board that are actually appointed by the task force. It is meant to be a 911 representative position. However, it does not have to be a voting member of the task force. It can be anybody who the task force believes could represent the 911 community. Vicki had just been reappointed this year by the task force with a term to end at the end of 2025. So if the task force were to reappoint somebody today to that position, it would be for the remainder of that term and would go to the end of 2025. That is a member at large position. And so there are no officer duties specifically, but there is a lot going on with the Resource Center right now, with the possible passage of Senate Bill 2052 in the future regarding ongoing funding for the Resource Center, as well as some work between the Resource Center and DOJ about putting some information on the website about de-escalation of certain types of 911 calls, as well as a partnership with Behavioral Health Administration to do some 911/988 training. So there's a lot going on with the Resource Center right now. So we just ask that whoever volunteers and whoever the task force appoints to that position be ready to work on those. Oh, I also forgot to mention, we also have the GIS project that is currently underway right now too. And so there's a lot going on. And with that, Jody, I would ask that you maybe take nominations from the floor. Again, does not have to be a voting member, and we'll see if somebody would like to step up to that position.
Okay. Do we have any nominations for others or self-nominations interested in this position?
Jody, this is Jody Chin from Gunnison. I'd be willing to sit and finish out that term.
Thank you, Jody. Any others? All right. And then forgive me, Jennifer or Daryl, on this one, do I make a motion to vote for Jody on this?
I think you would call for a motion to appoint Jody Chin to the Resource Center for the remainder of the open position. And then a second, and then a vote.
Okay. Call for a motion to appoint Jody Chin for the position of Resource Center Board Member to finish out the term until 2025.
This is Matt. So moved.
This is Kimberly. I'll second it then.
Thank you. And then I do an all opposed and, or all in favor and all opposed. Any opposed on that? Right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say sign. All right, thank you. Congratulations, Jody.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. So at this point, we're at the open discussion portion of the meeting. So I'll open up the floor for any open discussion items. Okay. Hearing none, as Jennifer mentioned before, the next meeting is May 9th, in-person virtual hybrid meeting at AdCom 911. And also don't forget the April 11th Lunch and Learn. And that will be with Secular and Exacom on cybersecurity. So I hope to see you all there for that. Let me go through the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. All right. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
This is Jeff Winkleman. I was reaching out. I've got a message from Rich from Entrado. He's still trying to join. He's in the middle of travel, so he's not on yet. So I don't know how we want to address that.
Jody, this is Jennifer. What I might suggest is that we maybe take a 10-minute break and reconvene as soon as Rich can join us. And so this presentation is going to be a re-presentation of what was given at the EZNet users group in February to talk about the proposed offerings for the tariff, the next step of tariff offerings from CenturyLink.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and break here. So it's 10:56. Should we go 11:05 or should I, well, 10:57. Should we go to 11:10, return back at 11:10?
Sounds great. I'll just keep the meeting open and that way people can, they don't have to rejoin.
Okay. All right, sounds good. We'll take a quick break. We'll see you all back here at 11:10.
Okay. Anyway, finish testing. We had sectors 5, 6, and 7. Okay. So we need to send to
Other.
Okay.
It says arrive.
Rich, we're glad you could join us.
Yeah. What does that mean? They just like process it well?
Can you folks hear me on the call?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Let me see if I can get my computer fixed here. I'll be right with you.
No problem. And then when you're going to be presenting, right?
I am. Yep.
Okay. I'll make sure you have share screen capability.
Thank you.
For transportation for the rental car facility, follow ground.
All right. Can you folks hear me now? I'm sorry to have to test this again.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep. All right. One more minute.
In the meantime, while you're getting set up, I'll just welcome everybody back and consider us reconvening for.
Nicholas Jenkins, please turn back to PSA pre-check. Again, Nicholas Jenkins, please turn back to PSA pre-check.
Poor Rich is presenting from the airport.
Yeah. So I live in Longmont, Colorado, and we have a cruise. My family has a cruise that goes out Saturday morning. So it was not looking good yesterday. So we decided to drive to Kansas City. So we just got here, and our flight's out in a couple hours. So I think it's going to work out for everybody.
We're not jealous at all.
It's been an interesting last 12 hours, though.
And thank you for being here anyway.
Oh, no, sure. This is super important for us. So, so you folks let me know when you're ready.
All right. So welcome, and everybody, this will be a presentation from Lumen on the proposed EZNet offerings, and I believe we have Rich Johnston with Intrado. Rich, the floor is yours.
Hi, folks. So I think probably most of you know me. I've been with Intrado for it'll be 25 years this year. And I've done everything. I started as an MSAG analyst and have moved up through doing phase 1, phase 2 wireless, VoIP, and I've been on this next generation ESI net side of the house now for about 12 or 13 years. So I've been doing this quite a bit. So part of the reason why I say all that stuff is I'm a little bit, I've done a little bit of everything here and there. So if you have any questions about this particular or how this would affect anything else, I can probably get you an answer or find out who can. From my understanding, and let me go ahead and get this presentation started here. From my understanding, we have gone over this more from a high level. The last time we talked through this, we talked about all the various offers. So we talked about GIS routing, we talked about I3, we talked about text, and we talked about TDMS here. So, I'm sorry, when you're looking at my screen, can you just see the presentation or do you see some other names and things on here? I'm seeing multiple things.
We only see the presentation.
Okay, perfect. So from my understanding, we really wanted to take today to go a little bit more into TDMS specifically. On the last statewide call last month when I presented this, this was where I think the most questions were. So we can do one of a couple of things. I can kind of go over it and present it again and then ask for questions. I don't know if that's as helpful or if the folks on the phone have specific questions that we want to talk towards. I could start with that. What's a better? Hi, Mr. Benkirk. What do you think?
And I think the last meeting you presented was the ESI Net Users Group.
Yep.
And so we may have people on here who weren't on the previous one. So it might be helpful if you could kind of go through the overview of.
Okay, and should I hit up all of the specific services or just TDMS? I may have misunderstood. I thought we were going to focus on TDMS today, but I can kind of represent the presentation I gave last month, if that makes more sense.
I don't feel comfortable speaking for the whole group because I don't know how many on here weren't on the previous meeting.
Hey, and maybe I'll ask Lumen. Jeff, that's the direction I got from our side. What do you think, Jeff?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So from my understanding, we were going to focus in on TDMS today, but because this is a different group, would it be better to go back through the original presentation that included GIS routing, I3, TDMS, and text, or do we want to just focus on TDMS today?
I think it'd be good if you could, we want to focus probably primarily on TDMS, but if you could touch quickly on the other points, just for those that weren't there, but it was just commented that the recording is available for those that want to see it in depth.
Why don't I do this? I think I can, just so we do a catch-all here. Let me pull up the original presentation here. Give me a minute. I'm going to stop sharing. And we can go through it real quick. I think the GIS routing, the I3 and the text stuff is pretty self-explanatory. I think folks will catch on to it quick. TDMS is the one that is a little bit more complicated. So I think I can let me pull up that original presentation. We'll talk about those three things quick, and then I'll bounce back to this presentation and go more in depth into TDMS. Does that make sense for everybody?
This is Jennifer, and while Rich is doing that, I did throw the link for the ESINet Users Group YouTube channel in. And if you are interested in going back and looking at that presentation, that was the February 14th meeting for quick reference.
Let me go ahead and pull up a version of that. Give me a minute here, folks. Sorry.
And Rich, while you're doing that, I saw your email earlier. I'm just not getting a chance to see that. So I think the tentative pricing is a good idea at this point, once we get to that.
I think so too. Yeah, and I'll explain that to the folks on the phone here in a minute. Sorry.
And
folks,
Rich, since you're modifying on the fly, we do have this meeting scheduled until 1 p.m. So you've got a little bit of time.
Got some time. Okay. Well, I will try not to waste people's time, but I might take a little bit more. Sorry, folks. Apologize for the time. I now have a new technical issue where I can't see my mouse, so I'm trying to navigate this thing without seeing my mouse. So give me a sec.
All it does is just give us a little extra time at the end because of your cruise. That's all.
Well, it's my kids. My kids are 11 and 13, and it's their first cruise. First real kind of thing out. We had to get passports for them, so they were really disappointed yesterday when they started canceling flights. And they're happy now. So happy kids and happy life.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, I think I have the original one now. I'm gonna go ahead and get that going. Jeez. Okay. Let me try sharing again. All right. We should be good. All right. Folks see one dated the 14th.
We do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So for this presentation again, for the folks that haven't heard it, what we'll talk about, we talked about the tariff next steps, which is kind of getting through these conversations, making sure it makes sense, everybody's on the same page. Lumen is working through. We've completed the draft. Now, as a follow-up from this last presentation, we were asked to possibly break one of the pieces into two pieces, and I'll talk about that with kind of the second part of this presentation with TDMS. But generally speaking, the tariff's in pretty good shape. The pricing is pretty much completed. We added that one little change, so we're getting that finalized, but it's in pretty good shape. So really what we just want to make sure everyone on this group, everyone from a statewide perspective is comfortable with what all this stuff is, what it does, whether or not it makes sense. So that's where we are here. I'll go over, I'm going to skip TDMS because I'm going to cover that with my second presentation, but we'll talk about GIS routing and I3 protocol conversion. There are different steps to what we can do in the infrastructure today. So just a reminder for Colorado, we do have an IP enabled infrastructure, next generation applications reporting. But at this point, the routing is done still based on a tabular basis. And what I mean by that is there is an ESN route associated with every call that designates the call be delivered to a specific PSAP. What we can do, and we can do from a technical perspective almost immediately, is start routing on GIS. I'll get more into this here in the conversation, but what we're seeing is anywhere from 60 to 80% of all wireless calls right now are providing a latitude and longitude at quick enough that we can utilize it for routing. So GIS routing from a technical perspective can be turned up almost immediately for GIS for wireless and VoIP. Wireline takes a little bit more work to do some comparisons to geocode those records, but GIS routing can be done very quickly. I3 protocol conversion, this would be done on a per PSAP basis when their call handling equipment is ready. And this really, what that means is it changes how the messaging is delivered to the PSAP on the initial receipt and for updates throughout the call. So this is just going towards the NENA I3 standards. It's a different way to deliver the call. My personal opinion again is that the biggest, I apologize for all this background noise, folks. The biggest takeaway and the biggest benefit of what we typically call I3 is the GIS routing portion of I3. And that we can do immediately without having to go out and change all the CPE. So that's why we have them separated. Text to 911 is also a part of this initial tariff. So this allows the PSAPs to sign up for text to 911 through Lumen. We would be able to utilize that next generation IP infrastructure to deliver that text. The deployments in Colorado today that are an integrated text solution are delivered over what we call ITS, which is a gateway over the public internet. So this text to 911 solution is a very well-priced solution that utilizes that IP next generation ESI net for the delivery of the text versus having to use an internet with a VPN link. And then we can talk about the pricing overview. I do have that as part of that second TDMS presentation. I'm gonna skip that for now. We're gonna come back to that. Most of these things I went through, and I'm gonna go through it relatively quickly to leave us time for what most people have the most questions on, which is TDMS. But please, please, please stop me anytime and ask questions when they come up. So GIS routing, kind of went through this real briefly. GIS routing is available today. Things have changed in the last 2 or 3 years, whereas the technology on the wireless and VoIP carrier side has improved significantly in that they can get a location very quickly and communicate that to us within an appropriate time frame. So we can take that. So when we receive the call, we can do that location query. We can get the actual phase 2 latitude and longitude for wireless and the static address for VoIP. We can utilize that XY to plot it within a PSAP designated GIS boundary and then make the determination as to what PSAP it routes to. So that's what's really dramatically changed in the last 2 or 3 years. Wireless carrier, I mean, the technologies have changed. So device-based hybrid and Bluetooth types of solutions, GIS types of GPS solutions have gotten much better. They're also doing some development for their own kind of GIS routing determination. You've probably heard of it, LBR. So that has helped the enhancement of the location technologies. But this is something that, again, technically the system that serves Colorado can technically do it today. It's provisioning, it's getting some PSAP boundaries for this, and it's turning it up. But this is a huge benefit when we talk about cell site, old cell site and sector boundary routing versus being able to plot that call 60 to 80% of the times, find the true location and plot it within the true boundary, which will allow us, and I'm not going to call them misroutes because wireless wouldn't like that, but just enhanced routing. Something that may have been cell site and sector before is now GIS based. Additionally, some of the questions we get from that is, aren't you already getting that from the wireless carriers with that LBR? Well, you're getting some of that from some wireless carriers. But the boundaries and the information that we're using, the GIS information will be directly from the PSAP, will be managed on a day-to-day basis. So it's much better information. And also as we move into I3, we can use that spatial information for all other alternate routing scenarios, other default routing scenarios, what we call special event routing scenarios that, let's say you had a parade or a football game and you wanted to route specific calls to different places. That GIS capability is huge. It also gives us additional time to get a better, more updated location information. They do an initial query, they send it to us. We then do an updated query using our boundaries to do the routing and whatever policies are associated with those boundaries to do alternate or default routing. So it's really good. It's saved a lot on transfers out now, because a lot of the time we actually get it to the appropriate place the first time based on the GIS, and again it can be turned up very quickly. So that's one of the pieces of this tariff, and what we're adding is GIS routing. The I3 delivery portion is more of a one-time fee associated to the PSAP. This is when the PSAP is truly ready to get the new protocols and interoperate with the new I3 protocols. We'll turn this up with the PSAP. We'll do the testing, configuration, and turn up. So that's more of a PSAP by PSAP basis. When their call handling is ready, we'll turn up the I3 protocol. But like I've always said, I still believe the biggest benefit of I3 when people talk about I3 and next gen, it is the GIS routing portion, and we can move forward with that prior to having to go full I3.
Bless you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I'd understood that AT&T and Intrado had already implemented location-based routing, device-based hybrid location-based routing nationwide. Is that already being delivered, or implemented throughout Colorado for call delivery? Or is that how they get the calls to you?
That's how they get the calls to us, right? So it's a two-parter. And this is where confusion happens with LBR. So it's already been implemented on the mobility side. So when the mobility makes their decision as to which ESRK range or which PSAP to send it to, they have their own set of maps that they use their XY and they plot it to. So let's say the call comes in, they use their version of the maps, it plots to Boulder. So then they send that Boulder ESRK range to the Lumen Intrado A911 ESINet system. Right now, the Lumen Intrado A911 system is set to route based on ESN. So whatever ESRK they gave us, we'll route it to the PSAP associated to it. With GIS routing turned up on our side, we will requery and we'll get an updated location, right? It may be the same, it may be better, given the timing. We then plot it within our boundaries that we manage specifically with the PSAP. So those PSAP authoritative boundaries are managed by the GIS authority for the PSAP. They're updated quite often, boundary changes, adjustments, street level, road center line, address points, and PSAP authoritative boundaries would be updated on a daily, if not weekly basis. So we replot that once we get the updated XY. We check our system to see if there's any special policy routing or any default routing associated to that location, and then we deliver it to the PSAP. So sorry, that's a long-winded response to your question. Atmo did do it nationwide. They are doing what they call LBR, which is their side. They're doing a GIS route to determine which PSAP they should send it to. But our step, whereas we receive that and we reperform that and use our information and our policies and our maps, that has not been turned up yet.
Is it the same answer for T-Mobile and
Verizon?
Yeah.
So
Verizon.
I can't speak to that. I know Verizon has said it's a PSAP. The PSAP has to request it. I've heard them say that. So I don't know if the PSAPs in Colorado have. For T-Mobile, I'll tell you what I think, because I've seen a lot of T-Mobile calls. I feel like T-Mobile, I know from a ESINet perspective, we're very successful with queries to T-Mobile, where I say like 60 to 80%, they're closer to 80%. So they have that location available. My guess is they're using it, but I don't know what their policy is. Atmos just said, we're going to do it. We're going to turn it up. We're going to roll it out. This was, I think, June of 2022. They said, all right, we're going to do this region, this region, this region. And within a couple months, we'll be done with everything. I think the other carriers are waiting for requests from the PSAPs, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
So my question went more to whether they're routing to the information they give to you is routing using their device-based hybrid, or it's not getting past you because they're not giving you the right information.
Well, so the way they pass calls to us today is through a traditional means. One of two ways. Either they pass it TDM or they pass it what we call basic IP. And none of that includes latitude and longitude. What we do with this GIS routing capability that I have up on the screen here is we turn on the ability for us to go query their location information server, their MPC or VPC, to get that location update. So they're not passing any location information now. We have to actually turn on a functionality to go get that from them. And that hasn't been turned on yet. That's what this GIS routing is.
Okay, and then the other question I had is the FCC has issued an order requiring implementation of
I
location-based
saw that.
routing. The national ones within 6 months. I think it was 3 years for the regional providers.
Yep.
Can you do both?
Yes.
Like if you have an area that has both regional providers and national providers, you can handle both.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, from our perspective, again, that FCC mandate is for the wireless carriers to make their routing decisions based on GIS. Then they hand it to us. There are no FCC requirements on ESI nets at this time to do that. But that's what we're talking about here, is to turn up that feature functionality for us to go out and query. We will query every wireless and VoIP carrier that comes into us. Whether or not they have the information, that's on whether or not they have the technology on their side and they've turned it up. Again, what I've seen, and I think I've shown on a couple of these calls, you know, Nebraska that has this turned up, or South Dakota that has this turned up. We see between a 60 and an 80% success rate for all calls. So that would include wireless, wireline, and VoIP. If you meld them all together, we're seeing mid to high 60s or low 70s typically as an average now.
Okay, yeah, that was all my questions, because it would affect the timing of when we would need to request this, depending on.
Yeah, and what I would say is we don't want to wait on the wireless carriers. Let's turn it up on our side as soon as possible and gain the benefits, because there are immediate benefits of that. This location information is available 100% of the time for wireline. When we get through that validation process, almost 100% of the time for VoIP, and 60 to 80% of the time for wireless, without asking the wireless carriers to do anything. So we could turn that up immediately. And as the wireless carriers roll their LBR side out, great. Maybe our location improves or we get locations more often, but everything would be turned up already. And we're day one, I can promise you, because I've done it a bunch, we see immediate benefits. Kimberly?
Thank you. And you had brought up about the call handling equipment and receiving this information a little bit back. And I know you can't speak to all call handling equipment, but specifically for the Viper, maybe you know from other states, is there going to need to be work done on the call handling side? Should we be engaging our providers now and start talking through this? So if there is a cost on the PSAP side to upgrade their equipment to get ready for this, that they can start having those conversations ahead of a tariff filing.
Yep. So let me clarify two things. For the GIS routing capability, where we were able to do routing based on the XY we received from the carrier, that there has to be 0 updates to the call handling equipment to do that. That's all within the infrastructure, and the XY would then be past how the XY is today. If and when the PSEPs want to go to I3, absolutely, Kimberly. So those are the CPE vendors that they will need to make some modifications depending on the version you're on, depending on how you're receiving calls today. It could be minor and it could be significant. You know, there's still some PSEPs out there, Kimberly, that are doing CAMA, even though we're delivering IP in most of the state. There are some that are still delivering CAMA. We put in a gateway and deliver CAMA. Though that would require more, because for your PSEP, for instance, we're delivering IP. They already have firewalls and SIP licenses to be able to accept IP calls. There's some PSEPs that don't have any of that. So that, you know, it ranges as to what the current status of the CPE is, whether it's going to be a little, a medium, or a lot. So to go back to your original question, absolutely reach out to your vendors. I think, Jeff, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was an initiative on Lumen's side for the ones that Lumen was managing to start. I think you've already started that conversation.
We're looking into what requirements would be.
Yep. But again, just for clarifying, for the GIS routing capability, we don't need anything. We could have a PSAP being served by camera trunks today and still be able to do the GIS routing.
Rich, that's great. Thank you. And just to follow up on that, then, in the terafiling, I would love to see how the i3 would be able to be turned on based on the CPAP, the PSAP readiness for that upgrade. And then I guess what we would really need either from Intrado and or from Lumen is what we should take to our CPE vendor to say, hey, we need to make sure we're compatible. So any of that information would be great. I mean, for us, we could just reach out. We have a Viper, but somebody on a Motorola solution, you know, we want to be able to package it up, and that way they can go to their CPE vendor and say, this terafiling is going to be coming in 2024, project to be determined in 2024, 2025. What kind of impact upgrade do I need? So then they can prepare their budgets for it.
Makes perfect sense. And what I will tell you is that we have more CPE vendors deployed on the Intrado next gen solution than any other solution there is out there. So I don't know the number off the top of my head. I think it's over 20, Kimberly. So most vendors we have deployed with already. If we haven't, we do offer a no cost lab. We don't call it a certification, we call it a verification. So we will set it up in their lab and go through test cases. We'll spend 40 hours with them in our lab. But the majority of carriers have already deployed, and I mean, you know, Central Square, Motorola, Viper, all deployed already. I wish I had the list off the top of my head, but most of the all the major ones have been deployed somewhere across the country through an Intrado solution. So my guess is you say, I need to go i3 with Intrado, and they'll say, this is what you need, because we've already done it and deployed so many of them across the country on various Intrado hosted solutions.
And that's great, Rich. I just worry about the unknown costs like what we had with ECATs.
Sure.
So just want to make sure that the PSAPs and authorities are prepared so they can know what those hardware costs could be.
Well, absolutely. So, I want to be very clear about this. This is to activate it for the delivery from our perspective, from the network perspective. There will need to be changes for i3. 100%. I know there's at least configurations on a PSAP perspective. It's a completely different protocol on how it looks today, right? There's no more alley queries. The location information is delivered at the time of the call. It's night and day to what it looks like from a specification perspective today. So there are going to be configurations needed. Yep. So I want to make sure everybody is aware of that. We just don't have, from our side, the visibility into the CPE. Again, Jeff's going to looking at it for the ones that Lumen supports. But I absolutely agree with you, and I don't want there to be any surprises with that. Any other questions on this one?
This is Jennifer. I don't have a question. I just wanted to call people's attention to the chat. And Jeff Tucker with Motorola made a suggestion for going forward for determining CPE capabilities. And then Ryan's got his hand up.
Hey, Ryan.
Hi, Rich. Hey, you've helped us with a lot of projects over the years, so I'm glad to see you talking about this. This came up just late last night with our team. Are you or your team going to be at CCA next month? Because I think we're going to have a lot of questions here soon.
I not that I'm aware of, Ryan, but if you shoot me some, if you don't have my contact information, I'll get it to you. We can start it. Okay. We can start the conversation now, and if somebody needs to attend, I can make sure they do.
All right. Very good.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, as an alternative to that, you're going to be talking at the end of April at APCO also, correct?
I am at the Colorado APCO. So
right.
I'm leading a presentation talking about kind of next gen GIS, what's needed, new process and procedures. Love for everybody to come to that. You know, we've all been part of meetings that somebody just stands up there and talks. I want it to be interactive. It's an exciting time specifically for Colorado. So yeah, I'll be giving a presentation, and if anybody wants to come to that and shoot any question at me, I just love talking about this stuff. So I'll be available then. All right, any other questions for this one? Okay. So this is more of a type. Oh, sorry, Michael, go ahead. You're on mute.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So right now we're going through implementation of CPE with Carbine. Are they included in your list of people that you've already?
They are. Yep, we have. Yep.
And so if we want to move forward with that, who exactly do we contact to try to get in a coordinating phone call with?
So it would be your Lumen representative, because this is done through the Lumen Intrado provided next generation infrastructure. So whoever your Lumen representative, Jeff might be able to help you with that. Saying that, we can't go I3 until we get it on the tariff, to the best of my knowledge. We are technically 100% available to do it. Right now, we're doing it on the Lumen infrastructure now, and we're doing it on other Intrado hosted infrastructures. But I do think a service needs to be on the tariff before we can deploy it. So that would be the big push.
All right. So I'm sorry, I might be getting two messages confused. Does that also include, you say, when you can turn up the GIS capability, is that also dependent on the tariff, or is that separate?
No, well, that's also dependent upon the tariff. That's a new capability. And again, somebody who knows the legalities a little better than me, Jeff, you might be able to speak up, but I believe any net new service that is offered has to be part of the tariff and go through the process before we deploy it.
All right, thank you.
Yep. So I'll tell you this, yeah, no, I don't think we need to clarify. So we've worked with Carbine in the past with I3. Carbine, this interim step, which we usually call RFAI, I know they're currently working on that now. So depending on when you deploy, it may be that interim step or I3, depending on what's available. All right, so this is just real briefly to talk about GIS routing, and these are the new piece parts we're adding to it. So right now, calls come into that ESRP, which stands for the Emergency Service Routing Proxy, and in essence, we have a ESN TN relationship that tells us which PSEP to send it to. So with GIS routing, what we're adding is a query to the location database. So that is a query that goes internal to say, where do I send this call? And then we'll go out to the wireless or VoIP carrier. We'd steer that query out to their location database, bring it back. And we're also including the ECRF, which is the emergency call routing function. That's where all the boundaries are kept. So we go get the location. If it's good and we get it fast enough, which means it's phase 2 and it's within, I think we have it set to 160 meters right now. We then send it to our ECRF to see what area it plots within. If it doesn't return anything or the ECRF fails, we fall back to ESN routing. If it does fall within a PSEP boundary, we will route it to that PSEP. So those are the things we're activating with GIS routing. And we talked mostly about this, the PSEP, the I3 protocol support. There's really two sides to this. Mostly we talk about the PSEP side. So as Kimberly was talking about, and let's make everyone aware, I'm not trying to hide it, CPE will need to do some things depending on the version you're on and what you're currently deployed. It may be minimal, it may be significant. If you're on a very old version of CPE that couldn't even support IP, they may require you to get a whole new CPE to do I3. Again, I3 for the solution as we've designed it, GIS, we don't need to go I3 for. And we separated them on purpose because we've seen multiple times that for whatever reason, if it was funding or technology or resources, that sometimes I3 takes a while to get deployed on the PSEP side. So we didn't want to hold back not providing better enhanced solutions to wait till I3. So that's why we were able to separate them on our side. There is another side to I3, which is the carrier doing I3. And Joseph, going back to your question, when carriers are able to do true I3 delivery into the system, that's when we'll see the calls coming in IP fully with location information. The carriers just aren't doing that yet. But when they are, we'll be able to support that. For text to 911, so this is an integrated text solution. Some of the PSEPs in Colorado already have this. The calls are delivered using something called MSRP, which is the text I3 protocol. And it's delivered over an IP infrastructure into the PSEP and is displayed through a PSEP CPE GUI typically. So Viper has that developed, Best has that developed, a bunch of other CPE providers have that developed to be an integrated solution. So the way it works today and the way Colorado originally deployed was they did not include text in as part of the initial ESINet solution. We are now rolling that in. So not only is there pricing to deploy it, to manage it through the infrastructure, through the text, the TCC, it is also managed through the Lumen Intrado portion and the delivery to the PSEP. So there's pricing around that, and it's all over this dedicated IP redundant infrastructure that we have set up for 911. Another point is there to support integrated text, it also goes into a CPE, right? So for that, being able to provision that, you'll need to talk to your CPE vendors as well. Now, there are certain PSEPs that are, let's say, and Kimberly, I'm going to use you for an example. I think this is right. You're already deployed Viper and you're already deployed text. There are, for that scenario, the tariff does cover that with a one-time fee to migrate that, as well as a monthly recurring fee. So if your CPE doesn't already have text through Intrado, an integrated text solution through Intrado, you want to talk to your vendors if this is something you want to do. We cover, the tariff covers all the integration perspective from TCC and the Lumen side of things, as well as the monthly recurring service to support it. I think Joseph was first on that one.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that these are optional services, that PSEPs aren't required to take these services at any particular time after it's introduced.
So this is where I think we had a stumbling block last time. Jennifer, are you on here? So
Sorry, I couldn't get to the mute button.
that's okay. So when and if we put text on the tariff, the question was, will that be an optional service for the PSEP? Do they have to turn it up?
I think that's still under discussion. Traditionally, so far, we've had everything not be optional because of the way that the tariff is reimbursed under the state surcharge. And we don't currently have a model for pick and choose tariffed options and how that would get reimbursed back to the governing authorities. So I don't have a clear answer for that yet.
Who's involved in the discussion? Because I think the 911 authorities need to be involved in that discussion.
Well, that gets discussed here at the task force, and that gets discussed at the ESINet users group. So it's definitely something that needs to be discussed further in those two places.
Thank you.
And I think Kimberly's got her hand up.
Yep.
So, and we can take this offline, but it could be of an interest to people that already do have text and they have it integrated with their CPE. So their network connection is obviously different than the ESINet. are they able to keep their current network connection and use it as a redundant backup? So that's just a piece, again, a question I have. It doesn't have to be discussed today, but
I can answer it for you today,
okay,
Kimberly,
great.
because the first time that came up was one of these groups about 2.5 years. It was January, I think, of 22 or 21. And I researched it, and the answer is yes. So we did go through that. We can put it, in essence, an alternate route that if the ESI net is not available, that the TCC will utilize the what we call the ITS, that internet VPN with the router that you already have. So long way to say yes, we can do that.
And that's great. So then for Lumen in your tariff offering and for Intrado as well as it relates to pricing, you had alluded to pricing, there's the licensing, et cetera. It'd be interesting to know if that changes the tariff pricing structure and changes a licensing structure if you are only using it for a backup.
So, well, would you use, so we had always put in place that the ITS, the internet, would be used for a backup. Are you saying that you want the ESI net to be used as a backup?
I think it depends on how long and how graceful it rolls over. So we usually advertise that if there's 911 down, because sometimes text remains up, right? And so if there is a manual process or a delay in a rollover, anything that's not automatic and seamless, we would use the ESINet as a backup.
It is automated and seamless as designed. So, you know, from just in an IP world, it has an IP endpoint, and if it doesn't give you a progress message after a very short period of time, it'll fail over to the other route. So this would 100% not be a manual process. We wouldn't want it to be. So it is an automated failover.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So this was the original tariff pricing that was almost finalized. We'll talk about now because once we get into TDMS, we'll talk about some of the questions that came up last month, and specifically from you, Kimberly, but I'm sure it covered multiple PSEPs concerns. So I'll go in more detail when we have the new, or what I would say, tentative pricing. But usually either there's a one-time fee or a monthly recurring fee. GIS routing is an ongoing service that has to be continually maintained. That's a monthly recurring fee, and this is all done by concur call session, just like the tariff pricing is today. The I3 protocol conversion, we designed it to be a one-time fee. It made more sense to do that because it is a one-time conversion, right? From the existing protocol to the new protocol. So that would be a one-time fee. TDMS, which we'll talk about here, there's two pieces to that. There's some upfront work to get that GIS data ready, and then there's a monthly recurring fee to keep it in sync. So there's both for that one. I'll talk more about that here when we get into TDMS. And then text to 911, it's either an integration, so a first-time deployment, or a migration. And we were able to look at both of those numbers and get it to one number. Part of what we've run into trouble with tariffs in the past is having too many what if scenarios or tiered levels, and it just starts becoming incomprehensible of what we're looking at here. So we were able to combine a bunch of numbers, get some discounts, and get one number for the one-time fee for text, either convert, migration, or implementation, and then the monthly recurring fee. Let me go ahead. I'm going to shut down my screen and bring up the new presentation now to talk about TDMS, if that's okay.
Can I ask a quick question to Jennifer while you do that, Rich?
Sure. Yeah, no, please do.
Okay. So Jennifer, I'm just curious as it relates to setting the state 911 surcharge at that 9 cents. Will the commission staff consider setting the state 911 surcharge for at least a year to cover these one-time costs? And then you could always lower it to cover the monthly reoccurring.
Well, being still fairly new in my position, I'm going to defer to Daryl on that question because he's more familiar with the process than I am.
The only thing commission staff does is make a recommendation to the commissioners and then they open it up for comments. I think we could definitely include that in part of our opening decision if we have the information available to us by that point. But whatever we put in the opening decision then is molded by the comments that come in afterwards. So if we don't cover it sufficiently in our opening decision, then you guys cover it in your comments, and then the commission will make their decision.
And thank you, Daryl. I poorly worded that. I think that's more of what my ask and my question would be, is for commission staff to maybe look at that and consider it. Of course, we can always come in and support or add that, but I do think it could be a good idea when you are making your staff review.
I will say, though, that if we're talking about for 2025, the decision to open that proceeding is coming up fairly soon. I don't know when this tariff might get filed, but if it's not filed yet, by the time we have to do our opening decision, it's kind of hard to take hypotheticals that aren't written down somewhere into consideration in that opening decision. But if other people have information that they would like the commission to consider, that would be what the comments would be for.
Just a follow up on that then quickly is since it looks like the numbers, even if it's not filed, would be considered conversational and in draft form. It looks like Lumen and Entrato's done a lot of work to get them close to final before they actually file with all of their supporting documentation. So would staff be able to use that information since it's been presented in these public meetings?
So, I would have to talk to someone internally about that, because part of what we have to consider is that if it does get filed as a tariff, it is probably going to be an adjudicated proceeding, which means that commission advisors really shouldn't be part of that conversation. And I've stayed on the call today because I'm assuming that if this does get filed, it's going to be more than 30 days in the future. So that makes it acceptable for me to be on the call. Otherwise, it becomes questionable as to whether we can include that information in another proceeding. So I don't know that I can answer that question for you today.
Okay.
But if we don't include it, CenturyLink could file it and say, hey, we want the commission to consider this because we're planning on filing a tariff that would have this pricing in it. So the commission should consider this when it's setting its surcharge rate for next year. Or if any other parties wanted to file something in their comments that had something along those lines. I'm just not sure if commission staff could be the one that enters it into the record. Does that make sense?
Jeff, can we take a note of that over on Lumen's side, that whatever the date that it needs to be filed for to be considered, if we're not going to meet that date from a tariff perspective, that we should put these comments towards so they can consider it. I don't know if I said that right, but it's either get the tariff in by a certain date or file the information that can be used for consideration.
Yeah, I'll touch base with Tim on that. Daryl, do you know what that date is?
So we open the proceeding in July, which means we start working on it in June.
Okay.
All right, I think I have my new version up here. Let's see. Yep, okay, it's got today's date on it. So now we're going to go into TDMS a little bit more. Again, some of you folks are familiar with this, some are not. So what TDMS is, it stands for Transitional Data Management Service. I'm going to go through what it means, why it's extremely helpful for not only preparing for GIS routing and I3, but ongoing management of a GIS solution. So we'll talk about why it's needed, what it entails. We'll talk about some of the tools that it has, and then we can talk about the tentative pricing. So I showed you the pricing that we showed a month ago. We now have tentative pricing based on some comments we had a month ago saying, well, maybe some of the TDMS one-time services some folks won't need. Can you break that apart? So we went through and did that. Again, it's tentative because not all the folks have given their thumbs up on it, but I'm very, very confident it will be, but I just want to, that's why tentative, you'll see that multiple times. All right, so what happens in the infrastructure today? So we talked about it a little bit earlier, that carriers, the originating service providers, wireless carriers, VoIP carriers, wireline carriers, in the future will provide and be responsible for providing their own location information and to deliver that at the time of the call. They'll manage it prior and they'll deliver it at the time of the call. None of them are there yet to do that. So until they are, we have this kind of transitional solution where we manage the wireless and VoIP carriers kind of like we do today in a somewhat legacy alley environment, that we go steer to them to get the location information. It's not the I3 methodology, but it's a methodology that can still be very successful. So either we steer them, or for wireline and CLEC carriers, we maintain what's called a location database, or sometimes referred to as a LIS, location information server. We continue to do that until the carriers can do that themselves and follow the I3 themselves. What that means is that we have to maintain a legacy database. We have to maintain a legacy MSAG. We have to maintain, because the carriers aren't going to change how they send in their location information or their files or their data or their addresses to us until they go to I3. So we have to maintain that kind of old legacy functionality. So we have to still maintain MSAG on one side and all the OSP processes on one side, but we also have to maintain a GIS database, because we're going to be doing GIS routing, and we want all the future functionality of GIS-based routing. So now we have two databases that weren't meant to work together, really, that we need to get to work together. So there are multiple options of how to do that. The suggested approach is to, there are some carriers and solutions out there that says, well, you continue to manage your MSAG, you work with your GIS authority, which is most likely a different group within the county or the PSAP or the region, that when you make a change on MSAG, you got to make sure that they make the change on GIS. You got to make sure the changes happen relatively quickly so they don't mismatch. And then any other change in the future, you got to continue to put those operational procedures in place to update the legacy infrastructure as well as the GIS infrastructure. So it's possible to do. We've seen from firsthand experience it gets ugly, and there can be significant data discrepancies when you have two different groups managing two different systems. So what the transitional data management solution does, I'll give you a general, and then I'll talk about the specifics, is it helps the PSAPs get their data ready for GIS routing. So they'll work, and I3. So they'll work with the PSAP and the MSAG coordinator to grab their GIS information, whether that's road center lines or address points, and their current alley MSAG information, and do compares. So NINA recommends a 98% match rate between the alley, the legacy data, and the GIS data. And the majority of the time, I would say PSAPs initially are not meeting that rate. So what Intrado and Lumen will do here as part of the process, and again, there's like the pre-live activities and the post-live. This is a pre-live activity. Is we'll dedicate an analyst to you. We'll work through all those comparisons. We'll make suggestions as to fixes. We'll work through GIS boundary issues. Again, for I3, we got to remember that we're creating a whole bunch more boundaries than we have in the past. So there's police, fire, EMS boundaries. We'll give you training on what that means, how to load it within the system. We'll also do testing and remediation on the data. We'll also go through the NINA model of how this information and these layers, this GIS data should be created. So that's part of that. That's a big part of that GIS coach is, how will you submit this data? How do you do the field mapping to meet the appropriate GIS data fields and formats and get them loaded? How do you work those errors? So it's really, rather than just being handed a manual and saying, hey, Here's what's required, and you want to get up to 98%. It's a lot of help with dedicated resources, getting that GIS authority and PSAP up to that 98% match rate. That's one part of it, is all the assistance and help to get you there. The second part, and I think you'll understand here why I've separated these, because originally these were both part of the pre-go live activities, but now we've separated them, is also the creation of a one-time GOMSEG. So once we work with you to get you up to snuff, all right, you're at 98, 99.5, 99.8% match rate. Now we're going to convert it so you have 100% match rate, and we'll help you work the errors in the meantime. But what that means is we'll create a brand new MSEG from your geospatial data. So day one that you would go to use this and this becomes live, there's no data discrepancies. We're going to create a GeoMSEG. The other thing that's unique about this is that we talk about road center line on here. We also have the capability to do an address point MSEG, which has been asked to the industry for years and years and years, even before I3 and GIS routing and all that stuff. Is can I have a point-based MSEG, which means you no longer have a range that says 1 to 100. You have a range that says 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 7 to 7, 8 to 8, 88 to 88, 99 to 99, rather than creating a range that might be able to validate invalid records because it's a range. You now have a point-based MSEG. So that's something else we can create if the GIS authority has address points as an available layer for us, as an available data set for us. So the pre-activities for TDMS to get you ready for GIS routing and I3 are all of those things. Now specifically that GeoMSEG and the onboarding with the initial pricing, it'd be hard to remember that I showed a little bit while ago. It was one-time fee. So it encapsulated both the GeoMSEG creation and the onboarding. We were asked specifically to change that. And Kimberly, you have a hand up, so I'll talk towards you. What question do you have?
I was just going to ask if there is an additional cost for point-based.
There isn't. Now, we have had the question, just to be clear, what if I go road centerline and then go a point-based, and then I want a new GeoMSEG? There would be additional pricing there, because now we're re-performing a lot of the same activities. We're doing redundant work, and we have to recreate another brand new GeoMSEG. So that would have to be part of the discussion. But if you want to go address point first or go road centerline first, it's absolutely the same cost.
Great, thank you so much.
And Kimberly is pointing back at you here. So now when you see the pricing, you'll see these two separated. Kimberly made a great point on the last call that some PSAPs have bought tools or hired companies or put in a lot of work themselves to ensure that they're at a 98% or better match rate. They put a lot of effort into it. And what if I don't need what if I do just need a manual on how to load it because I've done all of this? That's why they're separate now. So you'll see in the tentative pricing, there's no longer a one-time fee for TDMS. There's a one-time fee for onboarding, and there's a one-time fee for GeoMSEG creation. And Kimberly, for your benefit, you'll get there. But the majority of the cost is around the onboarding and not the GeoMSEG. So that should work out okay. All right. And again, so we talked mostly about the pre-work, what's done prior. So let's getting all your data correct and 100% valid. So your MSEG and your GIS data match. That's key, critical that you have a good data set going forward. Then it's the ongoing service. So what does that mean? So the ongoing service is, rather than having to manage these two disparate databases, we take the data from one source and one source only, and that's the GIS data. So if you have road center lines or if you have address points, we'll take the data from there. So if there's an add, change, or delete to that road center line or that address point, no longer do you have to go through into a different tool and add that manually through a legacy process. Our automated system, this is the ongoing service. Again, we do all the QA, QC check up front to make sure that that data is okay. Once we process it through our GIS side, we automatically send it to our location database side, and then it automatically updates. If for some reason a GIS change would have affected a true alley record, what we used to call an orphaned record. So if the GIS side has, let's say, road center lines, and they change them from 1 to 100 to 1 to 50, and we go to send that over to the alley side, the location database side of the house, and that somebody was at 75 and it orphans them, then we have new tools, which I'll show you, that we keep that record in the database. We alert the appropriate folks that, hey, there's been a record orphan. So either A, it's a valid address that needs to be updated from the GIS side to include it, or B, it's invalid and you need to request us to delete it. So we have a new tool for that. It's pretty cool. I'll show you here in a bit. So it keeps everything up to sync. It takes it from one data source rather than using disparate data sources, and we have new tools to be able to work through it easier, which I'll show you here in a second. This is the process I just talked through. We'll get you a copy of this, but it's, the changes come up through the local county, maybe they go through a regional county, it's then loaded through our spatial interface portal, which is a web-based client that somebody logs into. The dual factor authentication says, here are my data sets, and updates those to into the system. It does all the QA, QC, GIS validations, that there's no range overlaps or gaps or anything like that, assuming it passes that, and then get processed and then sent over to our MSAG. And then both of those things are updated and viewable through this GIS director tool, which is, I guess maybe one way to put it is kind of a next gen 911 net kind of application, and I'll show you here. Question, sorry, I've gone too quickly without asking for questions. So I don't know who was first, Jackie or Joseph. You guys decide.
I think Joe was first.
So my question had to do with some things you were talking about previously, that there are parts of this that we may have done and developed or brought up to date with other vendors, or in the future we might want to update to a point-based and there we charge that. What portion of this work can be done in-house or with another vendor, and what portion has to be done, and what costs apply that has to be done by Lumen and Trado?
So again, Jennifer, I'd go towards you. This is an outstanding question of it's almost an outstanding question of whether or not this is optional or not. What we've done is we've separated these two pieces, the ongoing from, I mean, could you hire a vendor to manually manage this on all of this on your behalf? I'm sure you technically could. From what I would say is the ongoing service, the automation between the spatial interface and updating the location database to have that be automated, because it's the spatial database is within the Lumen infrastructure, and so is the location database. You could have maybe an outside vendor. Again, I'm talking hypothetically. You could give it to this outside vendor. They could update this spatial interface, and then they could go through a tool and update the MSAG. But the way that we're doing that, because they're all part of our systems, the way I'm describing the ongoing service, I think would have to be done through Lumen. As for the pre-work, the onboarding type of activities, again, I'm talking hypothetically and technically. And Kim, I'll throw your name out there. Kim got some tools. They've done that. They've done their own onboarding, and they've achieved either a 98% or better match rate. And if they're okay with handling that data and delivering it to the spatial interface the way they need to do it, then they wouldn't need to do that onboarding. Could other vendors provide that service? Technically, absolutely. It comes back to the question of whether, if this is on a tariff, how that works. From an Entrado Lumen perspective, we would defer to the state with the understanding of the tariff of whether or not something is optional or not optional. I will 100% say, we've done this, we've done this more than anyone. I can say that beyond a doubt. And I'll give you my opinion. I'll give you my, and I'll give you my opinion here. I think we do it better than anybody else. That's an opinion. But of us doing it more than anyone else in this fashion and having success, I can honestly say there's no one out there that has done it more or been more successful.
Rich, this is Jennifer, and I think, and I'm just going to ask this question in a slightly different way because I think that's what Joe's trying to get at. I think the question is, which services absolutely need to be provided by CenturyLink and Entrado in order to achieve geospatial routing, and which services could potentially be provided by another vendor because that's not germane to geospatial delivery. In other words, as you kind of pointed out, this TDMS service is done by Lumen and Entrado, but it's also done by other vendors. Conversely, the geospatial routing piece would need to be provided by CenturyLink and Entrado because that's part of basic call delivery under the Colorado model of basic emergency service provider.
Absolutely. So what I would say is the text, the I3 and the GIS routing, the other services we talked about are core feature functionalities of the system that is provided by Lumen. Those are configurations and settings of the infrastructure that has been set up for next generation 911, and those would have to be provided by Entrado and Lumen. From a management of TDMS data and getting it ready to be delivered, and then the ongoing data accuracy validation between those sides, that could be done by anybody. Now, there are certain ways it has to be loaded through our system, the GIS, and if it was done through somebody else, they'd have to load both sides of the system. They'd have to load the legacy system through 911net, and they'd have to load the spatial interface through the spatial interface tool. But technically, could the PSAP manage it themselves, or could they use a third-party provider to manage it? Yep. What the automated procedures that we put in place, other vendors couldn't do because that's inter-system. But could they create a different database that may be automatically updated through 911net? I don't know. So, but what the main purpose of TDMS is to get your data ready and to make sure it's in synchronization going forward once you deploy. And could that technically be done by somebody else? Yes. Now, the question I don't know, Jennifer, is once it's on the tariff, the tariff things are what I don't understand, but I want to be truthful and honest and candid with you that could these services, could the PSAP do them themselves? We've seen a lot try and some be successful, but the data accuracy is the biggest issue. Could they go through a different vendor to manage that in some way, shape, or form? Sure, they could.
So Jackie, if her hand was up in real life, her arm would be asleep. So I'm going to defer to her.
That's okay. Hi, Rich. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So we did have a couple, and my counties that I work with did the Entrado analysis, and we've worked through a lot of those errors. But some of the questions that I'm getting is, with the 98% match, with the analysis that was done by Entrado, a lot of those errors were, i.e. it was in a rural area and the point was way off the center line, so it popped out as an error. And then another would be the anomalies there. It's going to be there. It's a address parity and there's nothing we could do about it, i.e. I live on a street in Breckenridge that goes from 1 to 65 all the way around the street.
Yep.
And most likely they're not going to change the addressing. So basically, does Entrado in this TDMS service take those things into consideration? Because what you're calling 98% and what we're calling 98% looks a little bit different.
Yeah, what I can tell you is with the TDMS, with that onboarding service that I talked about, is you have a dedicated I3 GIS representative. So you would work through every one of those scenarios with that person and either make exceptions or not, or readdress. They'll walk you through. They know exactly how to do this stuff. Yeah, again, throughout one of the many Intrado infrastructures that we manage, we've deployed over 1,000 PSEPs on I3 and done this thousands of times. So that you get that expertise with us to say, okay, this is how I would handle that situation, or this is how I would do that one, or these are the modifications. Here are the 3 different options you could handle this specific address point. That's the dedicated I3 professional to get you there and to help you make those decisions. That's what we include.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And I worked at First Bank in Breckenridge for 2 years, and so I know Breckenridge well.
Yeah, fun place.
Matt?
Hey, Rich.
Hey.
So I think it would be fair to say it looks like there's a minimum level of QA QC that happens to GIS data that gets uploaded to Intrado either way.
Agreed. Yeah, that spatial interface function, which is we call EGDMS sometimes, there's other names for it. We do validate that it absolutely from a GIS perspective, right? That you don't have overlaps, you don't have gaps, that sort of things.
Right.
So there are level of QA/QC from just a GIS side perspective. But what it doesn't do is then go compare it to your MSEG, right? Because it is a disparate system. So what TDMS does is helps you with that. Is when you make a change here, we carry it over to here. And if it created a problem over there, we alert you and we give you tools to help you resolve it. If not, if for those PSEPs out there that went forward to manage it themselves, they need to be very, very regimented and set up the operational procedures to have that understanding between the legacy MSAG side of the business and the GIS side of the business, and what effect one has on the other, and then they need to be 100% in sync. So we've seen it, and it's been managed like that, but it can be difficult to say the least. And I've never seen TDMS decrease in match rate or accuracy. It's always increasing, even for the best PSEPs that have done it. It keeps them. So, is it possible? I again want to be candid and transparent. Absolutely. And have we had PSEPs do it without this service? Absolutely. Is it beneficial? Absolutely.
And then insofar as like Jackie's example, where if you did a GIS fishbone analysis and it would show that Jackie's street is completely out of whack, at least on one side of the street, right? Because the addressing loops around. I'm envisioning that in the GIS director, the local coordinator could flag those instances as okay, kind of like a person would do in a GIS topology, right?
Well, yeah, yes. And at that point too, I mean, it would be whatever was made on the upfront side of whether it was an exception or it was flagged, it is now part of the infrastructure. And as once it goes to that MSAG validation side, it's valid. So it really just gets it through, I would say, that front half of the part is getting the data ready. And that's all those exceptions and validations and the I3 coaches help to, this is my suggestion on how you should deal with this oddity. That's all worked up front, but once it's in the database and we create the GeoMSAG, there's a match for it. So it no longer would be an oddity, if you will.
Okay, but then if we carry that a step further, as much as we all like to be able to sign off on assignments of new addresses so that they're not like Jackie's situation, for example.
Yep.
New addresses do come in that are problematic, that cannot be resolved. And so you can continue that process going forward inside the GIS director. Is that right? Where you
correct. Well, but you also have the GIS coach throughout the life of the service. So those folks that if you have an oddity or one-off that you need to work through, it's no longer like, oh, they're not available to you anymore.
Okay.
you still have that person is still dedicated to that GIS authority through the life of this agreement. So it's not like we're onboarded. Okay, I'll talk to you in 5 years or something. They're there for you for daily questions.
So similar to our data integrity unit analyst that we
Yep.
have today.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct. This is the tool that Matt was talking. You've seen it before. So this is a tool. This is maybe the 911, the next gen 911 net that I was talking about. It gives you a visual representation of the actual map that's loaded within the layers that are loaded within the system for the GIS routing. It also gives you something. It gives you the MSAG and location database queries that were available and are available through 911 net today. It allows for chats to happen between if somebody were to go forward with this. For instance, if you want, although maybe all the data now comes from the GIS side of the house, maybe the MSAC border still needs to be is still there and still needs to be in the loop of making decisions. So we can give this tool to multiple entities on the county or city or PSAP side. And we also have on the right hand side something called the LVF, which is the location validation function, something that the carriers are going to use in the future when they are doing I3 themselves. But it allows you to look up a specific address to see if it would actually meet the expectations. So if you have a question of does my geospatial data handle this address as it should, it can be queried on the right hand side. Here's the last part, and I have about 10 more minutes. This is the comparison of price here. So the original version of this was we had GIS routing. That hasn't changed at all. That's a monthly recurring fee. We turn that up. We have to we have to manage that ongoing, all the spatial stuff that's associated with it, all the messaging and ongoing operations with getting those queries to the carriers. So that's a monthly recurring fee per concurrent call session. The I3 protocol conversion, that's really a one-time fee. So that's, hey, we're going to help you project manage, test, and turn up with your CPE provider, I3, getting you all the digital certificates you need for I3, doing the pre-testing, doing the test and turn up, the configurations, and going live with it. So that's a one-time fee, again, based on concurrent call session. If you look at the TDMS, this is where we've changed it up. So per the requests and requirements of the last call, we did separate the onboarding portion and the GeoMSAG portion. And again, the majority of that upfront fee is for the onboarding because there's so much dedicated support available from the Intrado and Lumen teams to support it. So the majority falls on the onboarding side, but we were asked to separate those. Again, this is tentative pricing that hasn't been fully signed off on, but I thought it was a good time to talk about. That's probably roughly going to be the breakdown for TDMS. In my mind, that is going to be the breakdown, but it hasn't gone through all the approvals yet. So you see, maybe about a quarter of it or so is dedicated to the GeoMSAG, working through that and creating it. And then the real, again, the resources, when you get people involved and real-time support, 24/7 types of support activities, that's the bigger price there for the onboarding. So that's a one-time fee, again, per concurrent call session. Then the ongoing fee for TDMS, relatively low per concurrent call session. This is for the ongoing synchronization of taking that information just from the GIS side, synchronizing it to the MSAG or old location database side. And then text to 911 hasn't changed. So really the only thing that's changed here is the one-time fee for TDMS, and we just separated it out. First of all, because it made sense, and second of all, because we were asked to. Kimberly?
I just wanted to thank you for taking the feedback from the last call and then going back
sure.
and considering that work and then coming back with different options. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Kimberly, I think if you put the time and effort and spend the money and have the tools, Why not? You know, we are going to, I will say this, we are going to do a match rate. We're going to do one, you know, with the TDMS onboarding, you get as many as you want until we get you where you need to be. All these different validations and reports we run. But we're not going to go into this thing blind. So even if you didn't choose onboarding, we're going to at least do that comparison once to say, this is where you're at. You think you're at 98%? You are, yay. Or you think you're at 99.5%? We show you at 60. So it's more of a, you know, as a steward of 911 and to make sure everyone's on the same page with going live, we will do one compare.
Yeah, I agree. And we do appreciate it because the last thing we want to do is pay twice for work that we've already done. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Yep. Makes sense. Mr. Benkirk?
So I'm assuming that currently there are rate elements in the tariff that relate to the ongoing current MSAG service and 911 net. Do they go away at some point, or when we transition to this TDMS ongoing service?
So let me see. I would say when all of this goes away, when TDMS goes away, is when carriers go to I3, which means there's no longer a location database that we have to manage on the carrier's behalf. The rates that are out there are that Colorado continues to pay are rates associated with ALI, with maintaining that database. That is still being done. This is just a way to keep it in synchronization. But the current rates that are associated to a location database or ALI, they're going to stay out there until such time that the carriers migrate to I3. And that ALI rate, I believe, somebody's got to keep me honest here, Jeff. I think it's done in Colorado by TN. There's a charge per TN in the database. What's that? Oh, is it by population now?
It's by concurrent session to.
Oh, it's also by concurrent session. Okay, so in that case, when a PSAP went, if the carriers went fully on I3, that charge would go away because there's no longer a location database or ALI database to manage, right? We're just taking it directly from the carrier. But until such time, we're still managing, you know, there's still a physical device, there's still analysts that are out there supporting it. There's maintenance, there's network, there's all that stuff, and all that stays the same. This is just a different way to manage that synchronization.
So Rich, I think maybe another way to talk about that is we can't really get rid of the MSAG and ALI structures until the carriers stand up or have an intermediary provide their own LISs that then then are pre-validating customer device locations against the LVF, which is one of the elements you showed in the diagram earlier.
Yep, I'm sorry, Matt. You said it much better than I did. Yeah, so we have to maintain those legacy databases until the carriers can do it themselves or hire somebody to. So we're stuck to that. Well, you know, wireless, wireline, VoIP, particularly wireline and CLEC carriers, they need a way to send in location data to be displayed, and they do it in a legacy fashion today. So until that goes away, we still need those legacy systems, and there's still a cost and expense to supporting all that.
And I guess the other question that we had talked about last time is what would be the effective date, and would it coincide with when the 911 surcharge and the amounts distributed from that to the PSAP by concurrent session, would that be synchronized, or would it go into effect at a different date?
That's where I get uncomfortable, just because I don't know the intricacies of the tariff. I mean, I think what Lumen's trying to do, and Jeff, keep me honest, is get this on the tariff as soon as possible. I also think, Jeff, from a billing perspective, man, I might be treading on thin ice here, but I don't think that it's billed until it's activated. So if somebody wanted to order that service, if let's say it was on the tariff, they wanted to order the service, but they didn't activate it until they were ready to be reimbursed, that would work. Jeff, any insight on that?
I had to change microphones. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I think you're right on that. We'll have to get more clarification on how that's going to be drafted. But I think you're right. We wouldn't start billing until the service is ready to be utilized.
So I don't know if the alignment, again, I'm outside of my comfort zone. We can get it on the tariff, but you don't have to order it until it's aligned. When that is and how that is, I'm sorry, Mr. Benkirk, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask this. I do have to jump here. Finally, after a 10-hour drive to Kansas City, we're going to board our plane here in about 20 minutes. But let me ask this. Was that, for the folks who have heard them both, was that helpful, more detailed information? Was it better? And for the folks that heard it for the first time, did it make sense for the most part? I hope so.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think a lot of us will have more questions as this evolves.
Sure.
It was helpful to hear it twice for me. The
Okay.
more times, the more it'll sink in.
Yeah.
Helpful and better. Yeah,
Okay, great.
helpful and
Great.
better.
Cool. Well, thank you for listening. Hopefully you can hear from my voice, and I live in Colorado. It's near and dear to my heart, obviously. This stuff, all of it is helpful. The GIS routing piece is just, I've seen it done in a lot of other places. It has immediate benefits, as well as all these services do. But the GIS, I've seen the most impact here. So I'm excited that we're going through the process, but we're moving forward here because it really is beneficial and life-saving.
Rich, this is Jennifer. We really appreciate your time and effort to present from an airport and probably under adverse circumstances. So thank you so much, and I hope that you really enjoy your family vacation.
Thank you, and sorry for the background noise if there was a lot of it. But thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Travel safely.
Will do.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich.
Bye-bye.
Jody, it's your meeting again.
All right, thank you. So, going back over, I don't see anything else in the chat, and I believe, without looking at it firsthand, I believe we covered everything on the agenda. There it is. Yes, we did. Okay. And went back to everything that we needed to go back to. So I think we're good on that. So again, does anyone have anything else for the good of the order or any last minute discussion items before we adjourn?
Jody, I sent you a DM. I just want to make sure you got Mike Brewer as attending. He showed up after you did roll.
Okay. You said Mike.
Thank you for that, Jeff. I was busy shoveling snow and lost track of time.
All right.
Is the chat available in the recording since there are links and things provided in that?
Yes, it should be. And I will put the sign in for the chat, or I'm sorry, a sign in for attendance again. So if you were here and you haven't signed in, please use the link to do so.
Thank you, Jennifer. And then, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it's Jeff Winkleman. I've got one question in regards to the comment that was made about the discussion on optional versus required for what was just discussed. Jennifer, do you know when the next time we'd be able to start that discussion would be? Because I know you had mentioned it would be during the task force and the EZNet users group. Would the next opportunity be at the next EZNet users group and then go forward from there? Or is there something we want to start prior to that?
No, I think that's probably the best place to start that conversation. And the next ESNet users group meeting is in April. Wow, this year is going by real fast already. Hold on, let me pull up my calendar so I can see the date. That's going to be on April 10th. And we can add that to the agenda and start discussing. And the issue is not so much, I mean, I think the issue is how do we as a state work on funding optional services under the current model that we have, or do we need to come up with a different type of model as it relates to the statewide supplemental surcharge and the way that it's being used currently to reimburse governing authorities for connection to the ESNet. So all that to say, I don't think that there's not a firm yes or no that it's going to be optional. It's just something that we need to start discussing and exploring some of the options.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, everyone, again, thank you for all the work you've been doing for the state of 911 in Colorado. I'm proud to be part of this group. And if we have no further business, I'm not sure if I can just adjourn or if I have to ask for a motion to adjourn. So to be safe, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
This is Ryan at Viero. I move we adjourn.
Jeff Winkleman, second.
All right, great. Thank you. We'll adjourn this meeting at 12:45. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jody.
Thanks, Jody.
Thanks, Jody.